Hello A2, I'm really sorry that I can't be with you today. I've been whisked off to a very exciting training session instead. So I'm really sorry that I will be missing your first tentative steps, and I'm sure ones that you'll look back fondly on about issues and debates. So gender bias. I'm going to quickly talk you through the session. If there's anything you're not sure of, please do check with Stuart, or you can send me an email. When I'm not in session, I will be checking them, so I will be able to reply to you. What I would like you to cover in lesson today, on your own or in pairs, please not in threes, okay? There's not enough work or enough stuff for you to do. Usually there's an even number of you, so if you want to have a little bit of a move around just for 20 minutes to work with somebody else, you can, but please don't work in threes, because what I need you to do is open up the Google Docs, which I'm going to send you an email for. But you already know because you've already accessed it. It was the sessions we planned last time about circadian rhythms, infradian rhythms, ultradian rhythms, endogenous and exogenous, endogenous pacemakers, exogenous zeitgebers. I'd like to find that document. I would like you to write the names of the people who've completed that essay, so there should only be 2 or 1. And I would like you to use the plan to write that essay in full without any notes apart from the essay plan. Okay, you can all pick, have a little bit of discussion between yourselves, which I'm sure you can do, and if you're not sure, if you can ask Stuart for help for a bit of guidance on who wants to do what, as long as one person or one pair has done every single one, at least one essay on every topic. I don't mind if there end up being the odd duplicate, but I don't want anyone not to have done an essay, and you can all see each other on Google Docs, so you all know that. Okay, 20 minutes. Put your phone timer on. Watch the phone on the clock, on the wall. What am I talking about? Or put a timer on the internet, the online timer. Time yourself for 20 minutes and type as much as you can for that 20 minutes to write the perfect essay. After that, 10 minutes with your notes to improve it in a different coloured ink. Anything you've missed out, anything you need to be improved, you could ask someone else to have a look. Think about your evaluation points. You can listen to my videos online at the same time, because I'm sure you're desperate to hit. I'm sure you're really missing me. And then 10 minutes to improve it with different coloured ink. I will have a look at those for next week. The next thing I'd like to do, watch the YouTube video on issues and debates, which I'm going to flick to in a moment. After that, so the YouTube video on issues and debates is very briefly going to cover all of the debates, which we are then going to every week look into in more detail. However, the reason I'm starting it now is I want you to have a bit of a head start, so when you go in they're not completely new terms, and B, what I would like you to do is I'd like you to revise the AS content, the AS approaches, by placing them on continuums, and then every week we'll have a bit of a tweak because you learn more about free will versus determinism and so on and so on. I'll explain more in that video, but I'm going to tell you about some terms. Then what I would like you to do, and I will show, and there will be a picture of this which I will show you, is create a continuum. So I'm going to leave some string, I'm going to leave some pegs, and I'm going to leave some coloured pens and paper, or the makings of a good lesson. And I would like you to create a continuum, a washing line, for each table. In each table, on your washing line, one end you will have nature, free will, ideographic, and holism. Then on the other end you will have the matching one, so nature on one end, and then on the other end nurture. Underneath nature, or you can have it in a different order, I don't mind, but basically the idea, underneath nature you will have free will. Along the other end, underneath nurture, you will have determinism, and then nomothetic, opposite ideographic at the opposite end of the spectrum, and holism at the opposite, and reductionism at opposite ends. It doesn't matter if the order that you have them, as long as nature and nurture are on opposite ends, free will, determinism on opposite ends, ideographic, nomothetic, and holism and reductionism. It doesn't matter which ends they are in relation to others or the order. It's just so long as nature versus nurture are on opposite ends. After that, so you can do a lovely bit of decorating. I'd like to see some visual artwork to display what free will means and all those different things. After that, I would then like you to place the images of each approach. There are 4 images, one for behaviourism, one for social learning theory, one for cognitive, and one for biological. I'd like to cut them out, make them look nice, get the posts, and place them on the continuum. For example, do you think behaviourism is very nature or very nurture? Why do you think that? On a post-it note, can you tell me, write a brief explanation, stick it to the image, and then pin it on the washing line. Okay. Same with free will and determinism. Where do you think behaviorism falls within that? Is it very free will, very deterministic, or in the middle? And again, write it on a post-it note what do you think it is, explain it, and pin it on there for me. Then, and you want to do that for all of the approaches, for all of the debates. So you're going to have loads and loads and loads on your washing line. And what I will try and do is I'm going to try and colour code them. So I'm going to get different ones printed on different colours if I can. If not, we might have them all in the same colour, and you might need to, and then we might need to tweak them later on. Okay. So just see if there's if all they're all in different colours, then I managed to do that. If not, then you keep them all on the same colour paper. Then what I would like you to do is create images based on the activity on the other slide. So what that means is, in your table it says using your laces, don't worry about that. In your table, using anything that you can, all of the crafting stuff at the front that the ASs have been using as well. I would like you to create a visual representation of as many of these as possible. So if you've got lots of time in the session, which you should have, I'd like you to create a visual representation of the sleep-wake cycle, hormones in the menstrual cycle, hormones in SAD, and stages of sleep. If you go on the Google Doc where you've typed up your essays, you will also see that there are some video links, and I'm going to show you those now so you can have a look at those. That's not the end of the slideshow, we're going to come back to that. So if we go on to a Moodle, and then my courses, A2 Psychology, of course, Biopsychology, and you all know where this is anyway. And then you go right down to Group 2 Biopsychology, Circadian Rhythms. There are the essay plans, and as well as that, you do have the links to each video. I'd recommend watching the links to the video, watching other YouTube video links, whatever you want to, and then creating visual representations of these. You need those because you need to know about those 4 things. Otherwise, you won't be able to access what I think is the hardest topic. You won't be able to access the highest marks. So do make sure that you can present those. I don't mind how you do them. If you want to do 4 individually, if you want to work as a table, as long as you have some involvement with all of them and you understand all of them. If you don't, when you get to your exams, you won't be as confident. Okay. The next thing I would like you to do is I will, in that same group thing, I will put in the same Google Doc, I will put a document for gender bias, and I want you to, as always, type anything at all you weren't sure of in question form about gender bias. If the question is what is gender bias, I'm not going to be able to answer those. If you break it down, and I would rather have 50 really small questions that I can approach, that I can share with you, than just have don't get it. So do make sure, list anything that you're not sure of, and we can go over them next week. And then I've put homework, and I'm not sure why I've put question marks next week, because it's definitely going to happen. I like to make notes on cultural bias. So if you get time in the session, which you might do, then you can start making notes in your flip learning on cultural bias as well for next week. And then next week we will go over gender bias and we'll go over cultural bias. We might not have a great deal of time to do any AS recap, which I know we do normally. Focus on gender and cultural bias together. And then I was going to say, I think that's your last session, but actually have a session with that after a week after that for Christmas as well. Okay. I think that is everything. Oh no, I'm going to go and get a picture of the continuums that the other A2 group have done, so you can get a bit of a feel. Now the approaches might not be in the right areas on the continuum. I can't promise accuracy, but to give you an idea of what it should look like. So I'll be right back. Right, okay, so here are the pictures that you can see here, the continuum. So they've got nature, free will, ideographic, and Holysand there. So nature and nurture relate, and they've got a tiny bit of information about what it is. Free will and determinism. So they've taken the Bobo doll and they've decided that they think the Bobo doll, the social learning theory, is kind of in the middle. Now we don't know if that's true or not, and we will have a look at those next week, but I want you to have a think. So would you place that one there? The same with the rats here. They've put that very much at the end of nurture, and they've got the post-it notes on the back of theirs, so you can see there you've got nature and then the other one, nurture, determinism, nomothetic, reductionist, and then just a nice close-up of those. So I'll make sure that there is some pegs and string available in the classroom as well. Brilliant. So the only thing I think it is left for me to do is tell you about the different approaches. So let's have a quick look. I think we did it in gender bias. There we go. So, nature versus nurture. The idea of nature versus nurture, which you're familiar with before, is the idea that nature is all about biology, and our behaviour is influenced by our genetics, our biology, what is in within us, what we are born with, and then nurture is the environment. It influences the environment. So we're influenced by the environment around us. Nice simple one there. Nature is more biological element. Nurture is more how much does the environment influence us. And then in the middle, is it nature, is it nurture? Is it our environment? Is it our nature that we're born with? We could fall in the middle. There's some stuff innate, but then we develop on it, whatever it might be. Free will versus determinism is the idea that free will, we are autonomous beings. We choose what we want to do with no influence, no guidance, no effect by anything else, internal or external. It is purely ourselves, and we choose what to do. Determinism is the idea, and we have soft and hard determinism. Hard determinism is the idea that everything is predictable. So, for example, if you have low levels of serotonin, you will become depressed. We have a cause that then leads to a predictable outcome. There's lots of people use the example of if you were abused, then you'll become an abuser, and that's quite clearly not the case. You have to be ever so careful about using that because of self-fulfilling prophecy. So you might think of, so it might not necessarily be the reason that you would think, might not be the case. So free will, autonomous beings, we choose whatever we want, and these are all in the textbook as well, and you've got the green head and the pink hair girls at the front that you can have a look at. Determinism is the idea that hard determinism, we have no control, we just something happens and we respond to it, and this will definitely be the way that our life will lead. Soft determinism, the idea that we have some influence, some control, some free will over our decisions, but there's also some deterministic elements too. Idiographic versus nomothetic. So idiographic is the idea of the psychology, approach to psychology that wants to develop individual rules. So generally they conduct research through individual case studies, and they want to apply individual to develop theories that will fit one individual and take into account all of the individual differences, treat people like individuals. Nomothetic want to develop general rules, and this is majority of psychology fits around the idea of nomothetic. So the idea that we have huge studies of thousands of people, or they can replicate them, they're lab studies, and then we develop general laws that essentially help us predict behaviour but ignore individual differences, so we just apply them blanketly. Then Holysand versus Reductionism. So Holysand is the idea that we look at the behaviour as a whole. So we'll take the example of depression. First you start off at a biological level, so you consider there's probably some potentially some imbalance in neurotransmitters. They also have a genetic propensity. You then extend it further to their immediate environment, so nurture, how they were brought up, how they were parented, the attachment types that they had, any particular direct impact. You then extend it further to social, so you kind of look more broadly at their social network, their friends, how they interact, and also you could extend it further into the environment that they are in. So for example, if they were raised in poverty, maybe. The other things you could then extend it to are kind of political issues. So of course we've got Brexit, which then reduces which could be an example of something. There is the recession, which has definitely reduced the amount of jobs that are available, which reduces increases the chance of unemployment, and therefore debt and money worries, things like that. And also with Holysand, you could even consider the cultural aspects. So potentially there are some cultures, some classes where it's considered far more inappropriate to be depressed, maybe, that might not be considered in a certain way, or might be viewed in a certain way. And then potentially even the historical context. For example, people who are Afro-Caribbean could be the idea, or black could be based on the idea that in their past, their culture's past, there is slavery. And then reductionism is the complete opposite. So we identify one particular variable, one particular thing that we think is causing it. For example, with depression, it would be low levels of serotonin. And whilst a problem with reductionism is that it ignores other factors. It doesn't take into account every factor, so we can't explain not every single person who has depression has low levels of serotonin or whatever it might be, but reductionism is positive because it allows us to conduct experimental research and identify cause and effect. So if I increase somebody's serotonin levels, does their depression depression alleviated? If I reduce them, which I couldn't do because that'd be quite unethical, does that lead to depressive symptoms? So we can test it in a variety of different ways in a way that you can't do with Holysand. So what I want to think about is those approaches and where they sit. Oh. I'm just giving you a bit of an answer to one of them there as well. And I think, let me just have a quick check, I believe that is absolutely everything. Okay. Any questions, do email me, please ask Stuart. There are more examples of the continuums in the room next door as well, so I'm sure you don't mind. Rachel possibly won't mind if you ask nicely, you can have a quick look at those. Good luck, A2.